NieR Automata. This game enjoys widespread appraisal. The internet, YouTube is full of reviews and analysis glorifying it to the skies. It has 10 out of 10 ratings left and right and recommendations and video essays about its philosophy. My experience, however, is quite the contrary, so I have to word it. Especially when what I see is so out of sync with everyone else's standpoint. I know this is an unpopular opinion at this point. I have based reasons to state that this widely liked and celebrated game is actually a crappy game after all. For the record, this is a bad game. First, the graphics and the design. I'm speaking level design and character design. The visual world of the game. The first thing about this that meets the eye is the protagonists, these androids, 2B, 9S, and A2. They got designed right, they look good, and the visual orgy stops right there. Every single other figure in the game, including every machine life form, from small to big, everything and everyone looks bad. Their design is oversimplified and have a dumbed down, watered down look in general. Your adversaries, the machine life forms, are generally these rusty barrels with a ball on top for a head, with 2 dots for eyes. This general description fits them all. The first thing that came into my mind when I first saw them was that they look exactly like these wheedling wind-up toys from the late 80s. I was pretty sure that they had them in mind in order to later sell these as merch. We saw examples of this before. Whole animes designed around the concept of the merch it wants to sell. Cards, figurines, spinning tops, the collectible stuff. Beyblade, Bakugan, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Digimon, just to name a few. The designs have that vibe. The stages and the settings. Again, overly simplified, run down, watered down, featureless. Every single house is the same concrete block. These concrete blocks don't even have rooms in them. The developers didn't even care to make them believable. They don't give the impression that these buildings were once lived in. They don't even have staircases or gates for that matter. This is where I have to mention. There are certain indents in these blocks, but practically even these geometries are non-existent. They are conveniently blocked with everyone's favorite video game trope, the invisible wall. If there is a thing in video games that makes me feel taken for a drooling idiot, is the invisible walls. Even when the environment would strongly suggest that you can go in a certain direction, you often find that actually you cannot. They didn't bother to put some visual blockade into these parts to convey the idea that the path is blocked. Hitting these invisible walls, for example, halfway down a stairs, immediately kills the immersion, and I find myself having a shitty experience playing a bad game. The visuals are repetitive. The aforementioned buildings and the machine life forms that you find everywhere are looking the exact same. Throughout the whole open world, the vegetation consists of the same small trees, big trees, bushes, and grass, and that is it. In the department of visual assets, the game is lacking, and the atmosphere of it suffers from this fact. On the performance side of the graphics, we see effects and a lot of particles left and right when we are in an action scene. Plenty of moving parts act independently. Dust, sparks, smoke, bullets, but the frame rate never drops below a silky smooth 60 FPS. What's my problem with that? My problem with it is that whenever I play, the fans of the PS4 sound like a hairdryer. No other game does this with the console. Graphically heavier games like Bloodborne or Horizon, they don't do this. The only reasonable answer could be that the developers didn't care to optimize the game either. The fighting system. The fighting system is incredibly dumb. It is watered down to the extremes. If you ever played a beat-em-up, hack-and-slash game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The story. Most of the story is told through the conversations and thoughts of the protagonists. A modern game would represent this through spoken dialogue. We got used to the fact that in Japanese games, they love to represent these lines in written dialogue and rarely use voiceover. In this game, however, it is all over the place. Within single conversation, we see written lines and hear voiceover too at times. In a dialogue menu, you often see that some choices are represented in scrolling text, the other is spoken. It is incredibly undemanding. From Japanese games, we also got used to reading a lot of text. This is prominent here, and not just because the wordiness of the dialogues. A lot of the story is actually told this way. A video game is supposed to be an interactive medium. If I wanted a story told through written text, I'd rather read a book. The thing that annoyed me the most in this game is the boss fights. The uninspired design shines in these repetitive, tedious, unrewarding sections. A lot of the bosses are actually just variations of this laser ball thing. A big ball with a laser eye. These balls are solo or attached to each other in a certain way, and that's it. You see multiple examples of the same configurations too. But the worst thing in them and all the other bosses in general is that you cannot beat any of them. You heard that right. How could this be? Each boss has a life meter. You beat it down to like 2% and then a pre-scripted cutscene plays out. You then get to passively watch through how the developers wanted you to finish the boss. You can never ever deliver the lethal blow. Never finish what you started the way you wanted to, or any way for that matter. They rob you of the feeling of accomplishment and the satisfaction you worked hard for. It is so frustrating and unsatisfying it hurts. This game never allows you to feel victorious. The whole action part of the game becomes pointless because of this. They say this is a very long game. If you play all of it from beginning all the way to the end, there is a 100 hours worth in it. But this 100 hours consists of what? Well, not the long and meaningful story, no. This is desperately forced so-called replay value. To get the whole thing, you have to play through it multiple times. It is all about repetition. You have to fight off complete hordes of these uninspired ball-head barrels all alone with swords and underpowered pea shooters. They come in waves, quantity over quality. You play through the story like this, and when you finish, you receive the message that it isn't over yet. You have to play it through a second time as the Android 9S this time. You play through the same story all over again with slight alterations. You get a couple new cutscenes, you get to learn a little bit more about the story, but the whole thing is mostly the same. After you finish this, you get to play it for the third time. The third time it is more robots, more repetitions, more tedious, more hard. They say this is an open world game. You have a quick travel option at saving points. Saving points are severely broken in this game. A lot of missions are all about to get from this place to that place. How would you do this in an open world game where the distances are long and you supposedly have access to a transport system? You would quick travel, right? Not in this game. The machines attack your saving points at the most convenient of times, rendering them unavailable to you. What you end up having is a defunct quick travel system. This effectively makes you travel the whole distance to your destination on foot, consuming those precious gameplay hours. On the way, you encounter the aforementioned random hordes of machines, giving you the opportunity to do everyone's favorite gaming trope, grinding. Aside the repetitiveness, grinding makes you level up. Leveling up, on the other hand, makes no practical sense whatsoever. The enemies are always gonna be a couple levels above your current level, making these fights the exact same skill level each time. This, however, doesn't eliminate the need for grinding. Enemies drop so-called chips, which can then be combined into useful items, making you effectively stronger. The story is deeply depressive, by the way. It is set in the far future on planet Earth. Humankind is already extinct. There is no human being to be found anywhere. Yes, I just spoiled that. Thank me later. Transhumanism is strong in this title. Everyone in the game is a machine. The main protagonist, 2B, at the beginning, mentions that emotions are forbidden for androids. Despite this, every machine in the game, including our rusty barrels, are portrayed very human-like and deeply emotional. The emotionless narrative collapses within minutes, right at the beginning. It seeks to bring about your emotions towards these lifeless things depicted in the story, ultimately making you just a bit more transhumanist. You are supposed to cry over some spilt milk and broken toasters here and there. I cannot stress enough how stupid and pathetic this is. Who do I recommend this game for? I recommend this game for hardcore anime and JRPG fans. They might find some kicks in it. I do not recommend this game for anyone else. This is a bad game and a huge disappointment.